members of the committee. It is an honor to be able to do this, and also for you to accommodate my schedule. Before I begin my very brief remarks, I wanted to say that I'm zooming in from the site of the Norwich Farmers Market. The market's been on Hanover Co-op land in Norwich, Vermont since 1977. And records seem to indicate that it was the first farmers market in the state. And as I was preparing for this morning's testimony, I went back into the archives to the old Co-op News from 1977, and then Co-op board member Ben Potashnik wrote an article about why a farmer's market. And at the close of that article, he said that in supporting farmers markets, it gives consumers and producers in the Upper Valley an opportunity to work together for mutual benefit. And he closes by saying, hopefully this consumer-producer relationship will flourish. It's now in its 47th year, so, and of course, many of you will know that Ben Potashnik went on to become a Vermont senator. My remarks. For the record, my name is Alan Reitz. I work as Director of Public and Government Affairs at Hanover Co-op Food Stores. Across our 3 retail locations, White River Junction, Vermont, Lebanon, and Hanover, New Hampshire, we purchase $19 million in local food each year from within a 100-mile radius. 65% of that comes from Vermont producers. We support H401 as passed by the Senate. At our co-op, we've watched many local favorites get their start in home kitchens, earning trust at farmers markets, growing gradually, and eventually landing on retail shelves. It's a well-worn path for successful food entrepreneurs in stores like ours, at Hunger Mountain Food Co-op, and of course, up the road at a co-op that's even a little older than ours, Adamant Food Co-op, about 91 years old. At cooperatives and independent retailers around the state, we depend on local goods to satisfy customers, have a competitive edge, and our member owners seek it out. That's why the sales threshold matters. It creates the breathing room small producers need to test, grow, and refine their offerings before taking on licensing costs. Raising the threshold to $30,000 allows producers to stay focused on quality and community connection. We are especially grateful that the Senate decided for the inclusion of Vermont small producers of pickled and fermented foods. Food manufacturing establishments take a variety of form and are where business innovation is alive and well. And they create more than just delicious, healthful products. They produce income streams that can help keep a farm afloat, make local food more affordable, and help rural economies thrive. Thank you for supporting all categories of early stage producers so they can grow beyond startup phase. Whether or not they choose to move beyond selling at a local farmer's market, your balanced legislative approach is giving them a fair shot to succeed. We'll be very excited to see H401 pass into law this year. Thank you so much. I will submit my comments electronically.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate it. Do you have a minute for if there's a question? And I'm not sure there. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Does anybody have a question for Alan?
I guess I have one. Okay. So I have a colleague who actually presented the bill when we passed it on the floor, and I heard him mention yesterday that there was a level in the bill that went up to 30,000, and now at this point everything will be 30,000. But what he was saying is, you know, since there already was a classification that was 30,000 for some categories of food production, should it actually be that the base should be raised altogether, maybe to 40,000 or something like that? Do you feel like 30,000 is a good number in terms of the base for all types of products?
Well, I would certainly keep the base level for all types of product. Very concerned that if there was a separation where one classification was treated differently and kept down, I think that would be a very large hurdle to keep in front of those producers. Raising it to 40,000 is that opportunity that you have, because we are trying to build in the appropriate buffer for the next 10 to 15 years before this gets looked at again. $10,000 is a very small level. You are resetting. And so I would encourage that if you, unless you feel it's going to derail the progress you've made thus far, I would certainly suggest that it deserves serious consideration. If you feel that you've got a good bill, if that's seeking perfection and you feel you're going to delay its passage, I would be a bit concerned and hesitant about that. But you certainly understand the process so intimately.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Yeah, all right. Al, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your local farmers markets wherever you are.
Okay, nice to see you this morning.
You are. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
We have, good morning, Peter. I see you there. I also have before you on the agenda, Caroline Gordon. I don't know if Caroline is in the waiting room possibly, or has already joined.
Vermont was on there a minute ago, but bumped into it. Looks
Strange.
lost service or something.
There's no one in the waiting room, so I'm not sure if she maybe lost her connection.
Okay.
And will rejoin.
Yeah, okay. Well, in that case, wait a minute. Hang on. I just got a text. The internet is down. Trying to connect over cell. Okay. So, Peter, good morning. Maybe if you would like to join us. I see, it looks like you're there. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Yippee skippy. That's great. I guess my camera isn't working, but to be perfectly honest, this is my first Zoom meeting ever. And it's like, welcome to the 21st century.
Well, I am impressed. And in fact, we can hear you loud and clear. And we don't see the real you. We see a picture of you with your hops, which is maybe just as good.
It's probably better.
So I knew it was hops because I know that Peter grows hops, and I recognize that the trellis is there. Yeah. So for the committee's memory jogging, Peter was here in person and is also, if not the prime, one of the prime instigators of this bill. He had approached a number of area legislators a couple of years ago to try and get something moving on raising that threshold. So, Peter, I understand that you were, after you were here in our committee, that you then testified in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee as they were working on the bill.
Yes.
And I think you were following it, tracking it pretty closely. So be curious to know what your thoughts are on the version that passed out of the Senate and that we have now in front of us.
Okay. And as you know, I like to speak from a script. So if you'll put up with that,
That's fine.
All right. Thank you again for the opportunity to address this new version of 401. It left your committee in pure, simple form. After that, the Department of Health added several iterations of amendments that had me very concerned that this would not lead to a comprehensive, consistent document. However, towards the end of the process in the Senate committee, the department had crafted language that adheres to the original intent of the bill while also offering additional opportunities for farmers, food producers, bakers, and other entrepreneurs. Most particularly, changes in the bill, as Al pointed out, changes in the bill now allow for a very important opportunity for farmers and food makers, and that is expanded opportunities for value-added foods. I sum this up simply by noting that you can make a certain amount of money selling strawberries for a month or two here in Vermont, but you can make a lot more money selling strawberry jam year-round because it's shelf-stable. And there's another example of the success of all these deliberations. Pickled asparagus will now be available to the masses. That's a Senate joke. You have to ask them.
That was, I'm sorry, we didn't get the joke. Pickled asparagus?
Yeah, it was a Senate thing.
Okay.
I didn't know if it had made it over to your side. So anyway, I want to thank this committee and the Senate committee on Health and Welfare for all your work in support of 401. And thank you to Alan and Carolyn for the support of their organizations. And I want to thank the Department of Health for their hard work on this bill, trusting that going forward there will be collaboration with Vermont food makers and other stakeholders to gain their insights and perspectives, to be ready to answer questions from the public, not just about what they are not allowed to do, but to assist them in their food ventures. And please, the Department of Health, from someone whose head wants to explode every time I try to read and understand legislative language, please translate it into a form that Vermonters are, or who want to be food producers, can easily access and understand. Thank you.
I'm sure that's a plea that many Vermonters, many people, wherever they live, have for state officials. Okay, so Peter, did you complete your remarks?
Yes.
Okay. So it sounds like you're supportive of the outcome.
Very much so.
Okay. Let's see if we have. Do you have time to stay on for a few questions?
Sure.
Any questions for Peter?
I was going to point out he has hops in his name too.
Yeah, Hoppy Valley Farm, and if you're in Bennington, or in Marlboro, you can pick up some Hoppy Valley Pale Ale.
Gonna bring some up, Dave.
I didn't realize that. So you grow hops, Peter, and what do you make out of them? And some of them end up in beer. Sounds like
all of them end up in beer.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has that always been the case, or have you used them to make other value-added things?
You know, we did for a bit, but hops are difficult in that they're bitter, and bitter is a not so popular taste sensation mixed with other things. So we decided that it's enough work to sell a good mustard without hops in it than it is having something that's completely foreign to people.
How many acres do you have in hops?
We have about 3/4 of an acre. We have last count, I think 800 plants, and they grow 20 feet in a season. There's 4 of us, one in his 60s, 2 in our 70s, and 1 in our 80s. And it keeps us busy and hopefully somewhat healthy.
Representative Morgan has a question.
Good morning. Are these plants annuals, or do they come up every year on their own? Have we lost you?
Perennial. Stumped him.
Sorry?
Are they perennials or are they annuals, these plants?
Hops.
They're perennials.
Perennials, okay, thank you.
And in this case, the ones that we grow, we found and have preserved from remote areas of Vermont that housed 18th and 19th century hop farms, up in the Northeast Kingdom and along the War Road north of Fort Number 4, grown out of upside trees and out of stone walls. And so we've grabbed those, brought them back to the farm. Now they're our proprietary hops, and we grow them in the way that the 18th and 19th century hop growers grew them, which is like this maypole umbrella kind of thing.
Interesting, thank you.
Sure.
Peter, there's the version of the bill that we're looking at has a list of products that essentially qualify under the new category. And you mentioned that you were happy that there were pickled products, were now eligible.
Absolutely.
In the conversations that maybe you were part of or overheard, were there any categories or types of products that were under discussion that aren't on the list?
I don't believe so. I think the list is pretty good. Anytime that, you have legislation or whatever you want to call these things that has a list of things, that list cannot possibly be comprehensive. So I'm sure that there are things that are not on that list, like granola and mixed nuts and stuff like that. Excuse me. That could be included, but they're not, doesn't mean that they're not appropriate. So this, again, is where the Department of Health is going to have to come in when somebody calls in and said, can I add 2 tablespoons of garlic powder to my pickled asparagus without having to go through a process control? So the department, now that we're with this new bill, they need to really be ready to assist folks, both at the end of an email, end of a phone call, or have stuff available on their website that is easily understood and accessible.
Other questions? We have rural Vermont on the agenda this morning. As we were discussing a minute ago, it seemed like she had trouble connecting, and she's texted me saying she can't get on, and much to apologize. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I will say that in an informal conversation I had yesterday, I heard similar perspective, sort of satisfaction with the bill. A couple of small things that might be changed, but didn't feel like concerned about slowing or derailing things. So, and which I think is, often the case. You get to this point. So, all right, Peter, I thank you, and we'll let you get back to tending the hops.
Thank you. It's been a glorious 3 days after 40 days and 40 nights of rain.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Take
you
care.
all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, John.
Back to those food groups. Is that usual for such as these sort of suggestions? I mean, it just leaves, it's sort of this category, these categories, but it could be, there's nothing that says, or others, or.
Yeah, I think at the very end, there's an other, any other good.
Yeah, and.
Yeah, and.
What's this? Oh, okay.
Line.
And are these are all defined terms at the.
That I don't know. I suspect not. But I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And is hops, it's not a tea, it's not a grain. Is it a grain?
No, it's
It's a flower. It's a flower.
flower.
It's a flower.
Flower.
Yeah, the part that
Is that fruit?
Flower.
I think that it sounds like his hops at one point were going into, I'm going to say maybe jams and jellies.
I never heard of that.
It's not
Yeah.
a fruit.
It's the flower, which if left unharvested might turn into
Or
a fruit.
seeds,
Yeah.
right? Or seeds.
Yeah.
Where,
It's always fascinating.
Yeah.
where do like CBD and THC products maybe fit into this?
Well, they're not on the list.
But I can see the, CBD being added to a lot of these things, and that wouldn't be a problem then. I take it if it's legal, within legal limits.
It's also considered a preservative. It also acts as a preservative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe we should, if that's something we'd like to get an answer to, we should ask him.
Cottage industry-ish.
Yeah,
And THC, if any of them have THC, I assume they're under CCB's jurisdiction.
I would think so. Yeah.
I'd so like to take a moment to introduce a guest on the
Oh,
side.
yes, please.
Morna is from Johnson, Vermont, and she's very engaged, and they no longer have a market food
In
store
Johnson.
in Johnson.
We just had a small general store open up, but it doesn't have the square footage to be an actual grocery store. We've been
So,
working hard. at that.
so food resiliency for that community, which has been hard hit.
Their store's been flooded out too many times, so they've.
Right.
The whole thing.
And it's a very dynamic community, and well, it's not my district. I'm very engaged, whether it's with Johnson Woolens, Vermont Studio Center, Jenna's Promise. They used to have a very active sawmill that Manchester Lumber and Broad Lumber in, but Morna is part of a revitalization leader, particularly focused on food security and that.
What my organization is doing is trying to restore what Johnson represents on the map and to bring in more recreational tourists and people who want to see the healthy lifestyle that we have on tap there. We are basically the cure for nature deprivation. However, if we get a lot of people there, there's very few places to stay. So we need a hostel built near the Long Trail. We need a grocery store and a couple more restaurants. So basically, we're just trying to unplug and pull in people who can see the beauty and want to build in Vermont. More Vermonty, not Vermonty, but more like add to what's there, and instead of turning it into something that it isn't, but appreciating it and helping it grow. So we need food, we need all different types of farm to plate and plate to table, farm to table, and new restaurants, and especially we need a better. We have a lot of potential, and we're just trying to find the best way to dance towards it.
And
Make
Marna,
friends and help. Yeah.
we've had testimony in this committee from Footbrook
Oh,
Farm,
yes.
which is in Johnson, and
Yes.
has had. They've got a wonderful farm stand, but they've also been vulnerable to flooding.
They're working.
Yes, it's a great spot. You've got the river that goes through, you've got the college on the hill. You've got the road intersection there, so there's people from the north that can come down and then
On 100C.
100C and then Route 2 is
We
it?
have the Long Trail and the Rail Trail.
Yes.
We have the college's in-ground pool, a multi-million-dollar sports facility that's publicly accessible. We're trying to work hard.
The Dibden Auditorium, is it still Dibden?
Vermont Studio Center. Well, see, the college has identified property and land that they're willing to do something else with, because the college is only got 200 students on campus right now. And so Johnson has also been devastated by the loss of student economy, contributing to our economy. The vibrancy is really, we're all in a bit of disarray.
Yeah.
So the notion of getting reestablishing ourselves in a new way, we've analyzed our assets and our resources, and we've found that we are really have enormous potential.
I did read that the number of applicants for the fall has increased, so
That's good.
that may be a
And,
benefit.
and it's really a classic narrow river valley, and there are two watersheds, the Gihon River, which comes down from Eden and North Hyde Park, and the Lamoille Fault.
It's been a cluster of many,
Great
succeeding
history.
floods, succeeding damage, never recovering from all of it. Need to relocate many. We just moved our library to the Legion Field. We're readjusting our summer concert schedule to accommodate the fact that there's still going to be construction around the library, because they've got to lower it and add an addition to it. But there's also, in some ways, the campus itself is in play. It's a land grant institution, and I've got some interesting thoughts about the way the college could move forward, but I'm not. I mean, that's also, it's state and college system, so, but the fact is that's higher ground. It's got the stuff, it's got the sewer and the wastewater and the water and the electricity. It's very developable. And it can only be used for educational purposes.
To my advantage, I live on the very lowest, at the end of the Memorial River before it comes into the lake. So to my advantage, everything you lose in a flood, I get to have when it floats by my house.
At the other end of the river.
Farm really was hit pretty well with flooding, and I believe that their organic status was, I wish I knew more. But I'm a big supporter of local eating, local growing,
Sure.
local selling, farmers markets, all the economy we could possibly bring, because I think the lifestyle of Vermont is gonna attract new Vermonters. I think there's a lot of positioning we could do.
Are there plans for that big area where the store was in the parking lot? That's all gonna go
Because
away.
it's gonna be FEMA, the FEMA buyout,
Yeah.
and that's another thing, is the Johnson story is so much more than just any one problem. It's like almost every problem you can think of. And the only thing that's good about it is that we've got generations of people who knew what living in a good college town was like. And so they're like ready for more, ready to build more. The Studio Center is an amazing thing because art can save a town. And we're trying to develop all the good stories. But the question that you asked, the flooding and the FEMA property, they've identified over 13 properties between Sterling Market and the housing on either side. We're gonna have a lot of green space. So we're working to develop a really beautiful vision for how to make Johnson super inviting, super green, super beautiful, and bring people into nature in a way that's healthy, safety, productive and memorable. So there's a lot of Vermont that could still come into a better picture if what happens in Johnson could become a model or a representation for what a community can do in such a situation.
Down at my end of the river, FEMA is buying out one of my neighbor's places that has flooded too many times. And I'm on the select board there, and we've chosen to just keep it as a green space. Milton.
Okay, right, yeah. Well, yeah, the green space is, well, you can't build anything serious or permanent on a FEMA buyout property.
Yeah.
And the fact is, green is very beautiful. And we, historically, there were public concerts in what became the Johnson parking, the Sterling Market parking lot. So there's a lot of chance to create a good park-like public enjoyment place there, but there's limitations on what you can do as well.
Well, it's nice to meet you and thank you for coming in this morning. I had heard that there was a store that had opened or reopened. I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah, we have a general store
Yeah,
now.
good.
Mike Mignon opened it, and he's from a New York restaurant family who has a lot of experience with food. He's going to be producing a lot of ready-to-eat meals, but he's also got a really good, I even was able to get oyster mushrooms there this weekend when it opened, and I was so impressed. I got the 3 weirdest things that you could possibly want to buy in a local store just to prove to myself that I could.
What were they?
Brussels sprouts, oyster mushrooms, and one other thing.
One of Vermont's mushroom experts is on this committee.
Truly?
Truly,
Wow.
Representative
Flatter me, but-
Michelle Boston.
I think that,
Say mushroom bill
anyway.
last year.
I think
Are we
we-
still live?
we are, yeah. I'm gonna suggest that, so I've been hoping that while we chatted, that another committee member or two would join us before we got launched back into the conversation about 8401. Maybe we should go off the air and take a short break, and then once we have the committee fully assembled, we can get back into the work here. We